closer to the end of this review. Let's go with this. So we're given two functions, f and g, here, and we're asked to do a combination of functions. So first we're asked to add them together, and then we have a division problem. In both cases, we need to talk about domains. Okay, so again, earlier, when we're thinking of domains, the two things we have to remove from the x values is anytime we have a division by 0, or anytime we've got negatives in the square root. So we got a square root here, and since we're going to have a division thing, we're going to have to do all of this. Okay. First, we're going to add them together. So we take the f function. So we'll do f plus g first. We do x minus 3. I'm going to kind of group them this way and maybe make it a little easier to see that that's exactly what we're doing. We'll change color, so we'll make g into blue. And then we're going to add the g function. Now I don't have to put a parentheses because the square root is a nice grouping symbol as well. So we'll just leave it that way. And notice all we really have to do is remove these parentheses and we have our function. Because there's nothing we can do. The square root has everything inside of it contained. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is f plus g. Simply going to put in x minus 3 plus the square root of 3x plus 5. That's it. Now when we go to think about the domain here, whatever's inside this function, this inside stuff, cannot be negative. It has to be non-negative. So we just take that inside stuff, 3x plus 5, and we want to make sure it's going to be greater than or equal to 0. That's a definition of non-negative. So now we solve for x. So minus 5. 3x is greater than or equal to negative 5. We divide both sides by 3. Go up here. So then we get x is greater than or equal to negative 5/3. So see, x itself can be negative, but when it goes through the calculation process, the end result has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we've got this. Again, what do we need to here? Always draw the number line. Negative infinity at the left side, positive infinity at the right side. 5/3 is our boundary, or x, negative 5/3. So I'm going to write that, negative 5/3. And then x is bigger. That means it's to the right of this boundary place. It's included, so I'll put a nice solid dot there. And then we're going to go, let's do it this way in blue, we're going to go to the right. X is bigger than the opening, so it's to the right. And so with the closed dot, the closed point at negative 5, we get a bracket, comma, infinity, we get there. So notice the interval notation is just naturally lined up from the number line. So, and I know I need a bracket and a parentheses, so I choose that one here, bracket, then a parentheses, and we put in negative 5/3 all the way to positive infinity. Okay, so that's that first part. The second part, we're going to divide, and again, coming up with the function actually is sort of the easier part. Let's go with the same colors. So we've got f over g. So in the numerator is the f function, x minus 3. In the denominator is the g function, square root of 3x plus 5. Now there's a little different thing here. Okay, so that's the function. Let's go ahead and put that in. There's nothing to simplify here. That was actually fairly straightforward. X minus 3 square root of 3x plus 5 So now when we think of the domain, kind of got the same issue here, right? A similar issue, but one of the things is so this part inside the square root has to be non-negative, but because it's in the denominator, we run into this issue. It cannot be equal to 0. So a little bit different than what we've got. We could basically just say, okay, it's what we had, but we'll take off this negative. So we can say our domain is going to be x greater than negative 5/3. Okay. You could also go from the beginning and say, okay, let's start over. 3x plus 5 is greater than 0, but it can't be equal to 0. And then you go through the same process. So yes, we're going to end up at this place here. The only difference in the interval then, as you're going to see, again, maybe you don't need to do all of this, but it's just going to have a parentheses on the left side instead of a bracket, because in this case, minus 5/3 is not included. A positive infinity here. So when we go to do this one, we have to have a parentheses here. It is still greater than, so we go to the right and we get our interval notation that way. But again, a slight change, but these are important things, whether it's included or not. So this is parentheses on both sides. I'm gonna put my negative because otherwise I'll forget it. Get it up there, double check. 5/3, and then over here goes positive infinity. Okay, so that's number 9.